There's a good probability you played hopscotch when you were a kid. On the off chance you didn't, it's basically a game where players toss a marker, such as a small stone, or if you want to get fancy, a beanbag, onto numbered squares, and then hop through the course, skipping the square that contains the marker before reaching the end, hopping back and picking up the marker, all without losing balance. If you successfully complete this circuit, you then throw the marker onto the next numbered square and repeat the process. The ultimate goal of the game is to finish all the numbered squares without stepping on any lines, losing your balance, or missing the target square when you toss your stone or beanbag. Now, you may be thinking that's all well and good, but I thought this was supposed to be a channel about ceremonial magic and spirituality, not playground games. And fair enough. But what if I told you that hopscotch can actually be easily adapted as a tool to support spiritual growth? Well, it's true. Well, let's begin by looking at a typical hopscotch board, which is often drawn in chalk on pavement. Excuse me. Now, here we see the numbered squares with the final semicircle at the top, which is traditionally referred to as heaven. Now, look at it for a moment. Does the layout seem familiar? Well, what if instead of squares, we used circles, spaced them out a bit, and added connecting lines? How about now? That's right. It's our good friend, the Tree of Life, including the hidden Sephira of Da'at. The similarities don't end there, however, as both Hopscotch and the Tree of Life involve ascending through a numbered sequence of connecting stations and then descending back down again, as Kabbalah doesn't so much seek to escape the physical world as it does to bring higher consciousness back into daily life. I should note at this point that despite these similarities and the 10th square being referred to as heaven, that there is no credible historical evidence supporting that there is an intentional link between Kabbalah and hopscotch. Most evidence points toward Roman soldiers using long hopping courses for agility training, though exactly how it transitioned from that into a children's game that became popular in the Middle Ages is a bit unclear. So we're just going to chalk this one up, pun intended, to cosmic synchronicity. Well, all that being said, exactly how do we reimagine this children's game as a spiritual tool for adults? Well, it's surprisingly easy, or actually maybe not surprisingly, considering all the correlations we just discussed. But to begin with, you can create a large tree of life on the ground with chalk, rope, tape, what have you. You don't have to recreate the tree perfectly here. You don't have to have like perfect circles. Your lines don't have to be perfectly straight. What matters most is that the Sephirot are in their traditional locations. Because you don't have to be exact and because of the similarities, you can even just elect to draw the standard hopscotch board that we pictured earlier if you'd like. Now, in this spiritual version of the game, each Sephira becomes a place where you can physically stand rather than a mere symbol for meditation, contemplation, and visualization. Additionally, we won't be using a marker, so there's no need to rush out and buy one of those fancy beanbags. So to begin, you'll stand in Malkuth, which corresponds to Hopscotch Station 1. Take a few grounding breaths and become aware of your physical body, your surroundings, and the everyday concerns that normally occupy your thoughts. Because Malkuth is the physical world, this will be our point of departure. From there, we're going to move deliberately along the paths rather than randomly jumping between spheres. But as you do so, just be aware that each step represents leaving one state of consciousness and entering into another. As you land on each Sephira, you then would take a moment or two to contemplate what it represents. For Yasad, for example, you would turn your attention to imagination, dreams, and emotions. While in Had, you would reflect on things like analysis, language, study, and intellectual pursuits. Netzach will be for emotions, desires, beauty, endurance, and creative inspiration. Moving on from there, we would rest in Tifereth for a few moments, where we would focus on experiences of balance, compassion, purpose, and harmony. Then we'd move on to the discipline, courage, and boundaries of Geburah, the mercy, generosity, expansion, and wisdom of Chesed, and Binah's structure, limitations, and understanding. And Chokmah, we would open ourselves to inspiration, intuition, and creative impulses before letting go of concepts altogether and simply meditating in silent awareness upon the divine when we land in Keter. Then we would descend back down the tree, carrying the insights we've gained back to the physical kingdom of Malkuth. Now, I just realized that when I was given those examples, I neglected to mention Da'at, but, Da'at is the hidden Sephira of Gnosis and knowledge, so you can fill in the blanks there. Now, we can also incorporate some variations into this structure if we'd like. For example, you could assign a brief action or symbolic pose to each Sephira, such as extending your arms out in blessing while inhabiting Chesed, or placing a hand over our hearts while we're in Tifereth. Now, if you're physically able to, you could choose to actually hop as you do in the game rather than walk, with each hop becoming an intentional crossing the veil between levels of consciousness. However, if it's not comfortable for you, or if you have bad knees, such as I do, and are not able to hop, or slow, deliberate walking does work just as well. Now, additionally, you can also choose to introduce a bit of ceremonial magic into the exercise by vibrating the divine name associated with each Sephira as you enter it, visualizing its traditional color, or even briefly invoking its corresponding archangel. Now, whether you simply elect one of these variations or a combination of them, by doing so, it basically turns the practice into a walking ritual instead of a mere meditation. Now, as a side note, if you're not familiar with the associated divine names, archangels, and other correspondences, I'm actually putting together a series of videos where I discuss each Sephira individually and how they can be applied to magical operations, which will include that information. So if that sounds like, like something you'd be interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you'll be the first to know when new content drops. Anyhow, back to the point at hand. If the idea of turning hopscotch into a spiritual practice seems unusual to you, you're probably not alone. But That's one of the things I actually love most about esoteric traditions. They have a way of revealing the sacred in places we might not otherwise think to look. So the next time you walk past a faded hopscotch board on a playground or sidewalk, try to see something entirely different. Not just a children's game, but a symbolic map and a reminder that our spiritual journeys aren't always hidden in ancient grimoires or elaborate temple rituals. Sometimes they're waiting for us in the most mundane places, just patiently waiting for us to take the next step or perhaps next hop into transformation. Now, if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people discover this work and lets me continue creating videos on Tarot, Kabbalah, ceremonial magic, spiritual practice, and the Western esoteric traditions in general. For now, however, I just want to thank you, as always, for spending this time with me. It means a lot to me that you're taking the moments out of your day to connect with me. And until next time, may your path be guided by wisdom, your practice be meaningful, and your journey lead you ever closer to the divine. And of course, walk in peace and light, my friends.